It's a short walk after school each day for the students from Blackstone School to St. Stephen's Episcopal Church in Boston's South End.
As a church, we really take seriously the idea of being a good neighbor and to treat our neighbor as we treat ourselves. And so, as an institution, this church is a neighbor to that institution, the school.
The relationship deepened into a full-blown partnership 3 years ago when scores on statewide math and reading tests hit bottom at Blackstone School, a situation all too typical in Boston's inner-city public schools.
It's a school that serves the marginalized and the disenfranchised and poor families. And so I think as a matter of justice, it's part of the role of the church to think about how to make that institution a better place.
Advocating for students in Boston's public schools meant St. Stephen's needed partners, including students from nearby Wellesley College.
I do this because I'm really passionate about education and social justice and working to improve the education for the students we work with throughout their communities.
Like her college classmates, Amber Dickerson tutors children from Blackstone School in the Be Ready after-school program at St. Stephen's Church.
My motivation particularly stems from me being from Boston and kind of growing up in the community and seeing especially the helps that the public schools in general really need and that extra support that they need.
There's so much racism, sexism, classism in the world, and I think that the work that we do is super political, it's super inspiring, and I just can't get enough of it.
Each student has a field experience in a Boston school or community agency, and I think that's where the real learning happens.
Some extremely important partnerships for the success of Boston's inner-city public schools can actually be found in the Boston suburbs. Case in point, Parish of the Epiphany in Winchester, whose involvement with Blackstone has focused on the library.
I didn't know that most urban schools, elementary schools, don't have libraries. It's just outrageous to me.
Eileen Marks has played a major role in revamping the Blackstone Library, which 3 years ago had 10,000 obsolete reference books from the 1950s and now has 9,000 updated volumes with an online database. Other church members come to Blackstone each day to read to the students.
On Monday morning, Miss Nelson's kids were all in their seats. They were very nervous. Some of them had not slept well all weekend.
I visited with Betsy Walsh, who coordinates the 55 churches that have become partners with St. Stephen's.
I have spent many years teaching in the South Bronx, and so I'm aware of underserved and under-resourced public schools. I didn't make the connection until our involvement with St. Stephen's of how what a powerful connection it can be to use the networks of the church to provide some of those resources to the underserved schools in our cities.
Since the partnerships began, Blackstone kids have scored higher on statewide tests.
This is the first time that I had ever partnered with a church. It's a really unique opportunity because ultimately it's about kids and families being supported.
We haven't really grappled with who we are as a society in terms of really making a fair, equal, high-quality education available to all. I think when we read the gospel, I don't think God appreciates the gap between the rich and the poor. I think God wants better opportunities for everybody. And I think part of the church's role is to speak that, but I think part of the church's role is also to create some solutions to that.
New York City's Trinity Church in Lower Manhattan has stood at the intersection of Broadway and Wall Street since 1697. And throughout more than 3 centuries of history, Trinity has involved itself in education.
I think education not only is inherently part of Trinity, I think it's inherently part of kind of who we are as a broader church.
Trinity devotes lots of attention to the Nathan Strauss School, PS 140, on the Lower East Side, where many students come from families who are homeless. Volunteers from Trinity's congregation and staff visit classrooms and organize an annual art project.
We've also had our Totes for Teachers delivered to the school to provide for extra supplies that the school might not have for their teachers.
All the supplies that are here, I buy myself. And so to have someone supply me with binder paper and some rulers and paper clips, staples, all these things are things then I don't have to buy.
The church sends its music educators into public schools to train and lead student choruses. Trinity organizes a prom mania in the spring, so high school seniors can get formal clothing without breaking their families' budgets. And the church also runs a summer math camp. Trinity also recruits church partners. One such congregation is St. Mark's in the Bowery.
Is a need in our culture and our society in this moment that's a very politicized need that the church, I think, can be one of the resources for maybe unpacking and raising up as a common good.
St. Mark's parishioner Janine Otis works with the Manhattan School for Career Development, MS 751, in the music and literacy program she developed herself, based on hip-hop music.
Our young people in our church and in the community, we all know that they're not given the voice that needs to be heard, that's positive, and we want to keep it positive.
No matter what the program, the key element is having volunteers and partners in the community willing to assist public school students and their often overstretched teachers.
So when someone from the outside comes in and they spread the word, and then we get a little bit more help or just awareness that people are aware of what we're doing and actually, validate it and appreciate it, I think that's like the best part.
Richmond, capital city of Virginia, is a pioneer in church public school partnerships.
The MICA initiative enables churches and other faith communities to relate to these elementary schools in the city.
Woodville is an elementary school in Richmond with 535 students, including Kate Jennings' kindergarten class, where Dean Montcastle is a volunteer with the MICA initiative.
The children have different moods and the ups and downs of what goes on in their family life. You see it every day when you work with these children.
Like Dean, Paige Luxmore is a parishioner at Richmond's St. Paul's Episcopal Church. Paige volunteers in Jennifer Hacker's classroom, combining her love for history with a longtime kinship she feels for fourth graders.
One of the joys that I have in doing this is to be able to help with getting the children to have experiences and be able to make that connection between what they're learning in the classroom and what's out there in the real world.
Woodville Elementary is a school in which 99% of the students are African American, and 98% come from families who live in poverty.
From slavery on, there was that institutionalized racial discrimination there. It happens where the housing is, and especially for this school where the public housing is.
In fact, Richmond, a city of only about 200,000, still manages to have the sixth largest concentration of public housing in the nation.
We have a system that is in fact more segregated today than it was in 1970. Well, not only by race, but by income, which means that they can't possibly have enough resources to do what they need to do, and they can't have enough diversity within the classroom to make it function the way it needs to function.
Ben Campbell takes me on a tour of historic Richmond. The beautiful state capitol building was designed by Thomas Jefferson. A few blocks away at St. John's Church is the site of Patrick Henry's "Give me liberty or give me death" speech. And halfway between those places, during the first half of the 19th century, was the largest slave market on the East Coast of the United States.
The American Revolution was a half revolution. Half the people went into freedom, the other half went into a totalitarian state, and we have been trying to work our way out of that ever since.
And yet, to spend some time inside Woodville Elementary gives me a sense of hope.
Our children do not come to us camera ready, but that's okay. What they don't get at home is what we do inside of the house. And because we have partners and volunteers, we try to equalize the playing field for them.
Right now, 25 city schools have volunteer partners who come from faith communities, and not only churches. At Broad Rock Elementary, the MICA initiative has recruited volunteers from the Virginia Muslim Coalition.
I think with the Muslim community, as they go out and they see how welcome they are in the school and how the kids basically just gravitate towards them and love them and appreciate what they do. It's very, very rewarding.
Some Micah Initiative volunteers from St. Stephen's Episcopal serve individual students as mentors, a fancy word that really means just showing up each week and visiting one-on-one.
Tyshawn's very special, always kind, and I think that's been one of our biggest bonds, is his kindness.
I cannot tell you how Christian has enhanced my life, enhanced my faith. Her patience, her ability to move forward in sometimes very challenging situations has been a real inspiration to me.
She came as a lunch buddy, then at Peter Paul, she came as my big sister, and then she's still my big sister now.
There's this crazy dream at the Micah Initiative to find a volunteer to teach, read to, or simply sit with and listen to every Richmond public school student.
When we talk to our volunteers, we say, you know what, sure, we'd love for you to donate supplies and hats and gloves, but what we want is you, because there's no greater resource.
Dr. Sylvester Smith, pastor of Good Shepherd Baptist Church, understands that. After all, he's a former high school math teacher.
This is our community, and we ought to be involved in the community. I think that if we don't make a difference in the community, we don't need to be here. It's as simple as that.
Good Shepherd member Shirley Diggs is a former teacher and school principal, something that's pretty obvious when you see how Shirley works with the students with whom she volunteers.
The support of the children and the family and friends and the community emphasis, even if it's just to say, you can do this, you can do this. That kind of support is priceless.
St. Paul's Episcopal Church sits virtually in the shadow of the Capitol, and is a congregation whose history closely parallels Richmond's, and whose rector acknowledges the paradox.
The fact that this church was once known as the Cathedral of the Confederacy, Jefferson Davis, Robert E. Lee worshipped here, and with all that history brings, we have a special sense of responsibility to be a part of bringing healing to our city.
The grounds around the Virginia state capitol include statues honoring Washington, Jefferson, Mason, Lewis, and other Virginians who helped found the United States, as well as newer memorials to lesser-known Virginians who risked life and limb to desegregate society. As an Episcopal priest and father who raised 4 kids in the Richmond Public Schools, Ben Campbell possesses a deep personal stake in both the church and the schools and sees no contradiction.
Public education really represents the most universal statement of community within our society. What Jesus said was that every human being is important, and public education is the way in which this society says every human being is to be included, every human being is important.